Hi, welcome to Hushed Stories. Tonight, you are in a farmhouse kitchen in the hills of Umbria. On the first night of the summer storm, making pasta alone with garlic and oil, while the rain takes the valley, and the vines drink everything they have been waiting 3 weeks for. The lane up from the valley road is already running with water. You felt it the moment you turned off the main strada, the gravel darkening beneath the headlights, the smell of wet clay rising through the car vents, the fat first drops hitting the windscreen and spreading wide before the wipers caught them. By the time you pulled into the courtyard and cut the engine, the rain had decided. It came straight down through the pergola in ropes, bounced off the stone flags, turned the climbing roses against the far wall into a trembling silver curtain. You grabbed your bag and ran the last 8 meters to the door, and the handle was unlocked because you had left it that way this morning. And the key was on the hook just inside where it always is. And the kitchen, when you pushed through and let the door swing shut behind you, was exactly as you had left it. The long wooden table with the cloth pushed to one end. The 3 lemons sitting in the wide terracotta bowl. The window above the sink already rain gray and beginning to run. You stood just inside the door for a moment, dripping, listening to the storm fill up the courtyard behind you. And then you went to change your shoes. You come back in dry socks, which slide a little on the stone floor at the turn near the dresser. And you stop at the counter and stand there for a moment deciding. The aglio e olio, that is what you settled on somewhere between the petrol station roundabout and the bend above the oak trees, in the dark of the car with the wipers working hard. It is the thing you make when you want your hands occupied, but your mind left alone. Simple enough to do by feel, particular enough that it demands your full attention if you want it done right. And tonight you do want it done right, because everything depends on reading the garlic color in that narrow window between pale gold and past gold. A window that lasts maybe 40 seconds and closes without ceremony. The pasta water goes on first. You fill the large aluminium pot from the tap. It is heavy and you carry it with both hands. And you set it on the largest burner and turn the gas to high. Then you go to the larder. The larder is a narrow room off the side of the kitchen, tiled in white with a low shelf and an old wooden rack for bottles. It smells of dried rosemary and sage, hung from a nail sometime in spring and now papery and concentrated. And underneath that the particular cool that stone walls hold even well into summer. The pasta is in a tall blue tin on the second shelf. Spaghetti, not linguine, which is what you prefer. And there is just enough left for one generous portion and no more, which tonight feels exactly right. You take the tin. You take a bottle of the estate's own olive oil from the rack, a liter bottle, already half used, deep green in the glass, and you unstop it as you walk back and hold it near your nose, and it is grassy and sharp and completely itself. Back at the counter, you pull 4 cloves of garlic from the braid hanging near the window, the braid that was here before you arrived, tied in rough twine, and pushed slightly to one side by the window frame when it swings open, so the outermost cloves have a faint impression in their skin from the wood. You peel them with your thumb and the flat of the knife, slowly and steadily rather than hard and fast, and the skins come away in a single piece. You slice each clove thin, not paper thin, but thin enough that held to the window light, they would be nearly translucent. The parsley is in a glass of water on the windowsill. You pull a loose handful and lay it flat on the board. The rain on the glass above the sink comes in diagonal sheets, heavier at intervals, lighter between, and you can hear it changing register when the wind picks up, from a steady drum to something more scattered and loud, then settling again into its long, even patience. The vines on the terraced hillside will not mind this. It has been dry for 3 weeks, and the man who tends them, who you have seen every few days moving quietly along the rows, checking the leaves, pressing his thumb against the soil, mentioned it twice in passing this week when he came through to check the cellar. He will sleep well tonight, you think. You look out at the wall of water in the courtyard, and the stone of the opposite wing has disappeared entirely into gray. You pour a deep pool of olive oil into the wide stainless skillet, more than seems right, which is exactly the right amount, and turn the burner to medium and wait. You know the oil is ready when a corner of one garlic slice placed gently against the bottom of the pan produces a quiet, decisive sizzle, not an aggressive one. This takes a full minute. You wait beside the stove, and while you wait, you pick up the ceramic salt crock from its shelf and check the level. It is almost full, topped up recently with large flake sea salt that has not yet compressed from humidity. You put it back. The garlic goes in, all of it at once, spread with your finger across the bottom of the pan, and for a moment it hisses and then quiets into an even, low sizzle that is almost inaudible beneath the rain. You watch it. You do not walk away. The oil around each slice has gone slightly active, moving in small currents away from the heat, and the garlic itself is still white and raw-looking and giving nothing away. This is the deceptive phase. This is where attention matters. You pick up the wooden spoon and simply hold it, not stirring yet. The kitchen smells of warm olive oil and raw garlic, and the cut parsley on the board. And underneath all of it, the rain has found the gap at the bottom of the courtyard door and is rolling in a thin, cool line across the stone floor, at odds with the warmth coming off the stove. The pasta water is beginning to shift, a low, intermittent sound, like something thinking about becoming a boil. Not yet, but close. The garlic begins to color at the edges. The thinnest slices first, curling very slightly, going translucent. And then at the rim of the thinnest one, a line of pale gold appears, the color of dry straw in afternoon light. This is the moment. You lift the pan by the handle and tilt it so the oil runs to the low side and the garlic clusters there, and you hold it off the direct heat for 4 seconds, letting the residual warmth carry the color forward on its own. Then you set it back down. The garlic is gold and still. Chili next. A pinch of dried red flakes from the jar above the stove, enough to register on the back of the tongue as warmth rather than heat, scattered into the oil. They darken almost instantly, releasing a thin thread of smoke that rises to the range hood and disappears. You toss the pan twice with your wrist, and the oil moves, and the garlic slides and settles back. The pasta water reaches a full rolling boil, coming up the sides in a mass, steam rising freely and fogging the window above it for a moment before the cold glass clears it. You add 2 generous pinches of salt, and then the spaghetti, splaying it into the pot with your fingers and pressing the dry half down as the bottom softens so the rest can follow. You note the time. 9 minutes. You set the small brass mechanical timer on the shelf, the round one that ticks audibly and that you have come to find companionable rather than urgent. While the pasta cooks, you have 8 minutes, and you use them. You go to the side door at the back of the kitchen, the one that leads through a short passage to the storeroom, because earlier today, before you drove to the village, you left something on the lower shelf to rest. While looking for a casserole dish this afternoon, you had moved several old wooden crates near the far wall, and tucked behind the second one was a half bottle lying on its side. A half bottle of vin santo, sealed with cream-colored wax, pressed with a small seal worn too smooth to read clearly. A bird, perhaps, or a bunch of grapes. You set it upright with a thought to have it tonight, and then you drove to the village, and then the storm arrived. The passage is dark and smells of cut stone and old wood, and the faint sweetness of must, the residue of every harvest that has moved through this place. You find the light, and the single overhead bulb illuminates the shelf. The vin santo is where you left it. The glass is cool in your hand and slightly dusty, and the label is in old Italian cursive, a year, a name, a region, and it is not the estate's own wine. It came from somewhere else, carried here by someone at some point, and tucked away, and then forgotten long enough to become a small discovery on a stormy night in June. You run your thumb across the wax seal and carry it back through the passage. You set it on the end of the table and do not open it yet. You stand back and look at it in the rain light coming through the window. The small bottle upright on the old wood, the cream wax, the label in its handwriting. In the larder on the second shelf are cantuccini, the hard almond biscuits you found when you first arrived, placed squarely in their tin as if set there deliberately for whoever came. Sweet wine and almond biscuits at the end of a storm night in a farmhouse kitchen. That will do very well. The timer rings. You lift a strand of pasta from the pot and bite it, still resistance at the center. About 40 seconds left. And you pull the spaghetti out with tongs directly into the pan with the garlic oil, carrying with it a cloud of starchy water that falls into the skillet and immediately begins to emulsify, binding with the oil into something loose and glossy. You toss the pan with a full wrist motion, the pasta going up and folding over itself, and you add a ladle of pasta water and toss again. And the sauce thickens the way it only does through starch and friction and heat, through nothing you can buy or shortcut or approximate. The parsley goes in at the end, torn roughly over the pan, falling in dark green pieces that smell like cut herb in August, sharp and alive. One more toss. You turn off the gas. The kitchen settles into its own sounds, rain on glass, the cooling burner clicking down, the clock still going on the shelf. You plate the pasta in the wide, shallow bowl, the cream-colored one with the chip in the rim, the one that has been on this shelf by the look of it for 20 years at least. You twist the spaghetti in against a fork and lower it, and then drag the tongs through the remaining oil in the pan and let the last of it run over the top. A few more parsley leaves. A thread of cold oil from the bottle, poured from 30 centimeters above, so it falls in a thin stream and disappears into the pasta. 3 full turns of the wooden pepper grinder. You stop. You carry the bowl to the table and sit down. The pasta is still steaming, and the courtyard outside the window, is a moving dark gray, and the rain has found the long, even rhythm it takes when it means to stay for the night. You pour a glass of water from the jug and drink half of it. You turn the bowl slightly so the better side of the rim faces away from you, which is what you always do, and then you pick up your fork. The first forkful is mostly oil and garlic clinging to the strands. You blow on it once and eat it, and the oil is smooth rather than sharp, the garlic deep in it and not on top of it, and the chili arrives clean at the end as warmth without flame, and the parsley cuts through everything and makes the whole thing taste like more than what went into it. You lean forward over the bowl and eat slowly. The rain outside is going nowhere. Neither are you. When you are finished, the bowl sits slightly pushed aside, and your palms are flat on the table, and the kitchen is quiet except for the rain. You look at the vin santo at the end of the table. You go to the larder for the cantuccini. The blue tin opens with a slight resistance, the lid tight from humidity, and the smell that rises is almonds and orange peel and twice-baked flour. And you take 4 of them and set them in a small dish and carry them back to the table. Then you cut the wax from the vin santo with a small knife. It lifts cleanly in one piece, and you pull the cork slowly with your hand. It comes out with a soft sound and a small release of sweet, oxidized air, caramel and dried fig, and something faintly nutty underneath. The smell of years in small barrels somewhere before it ended up in a crate in a storeroom in a farmhouse in the Umbrian hills on a rainy night in June. You pour about an inch into the short-stemmed glass with the narrow bowl. The wine is the color of strong tea held up to the lamp, amber and gold at once. You dip the end of a cantuccino into the glass and hold it there for 3 seconds. When you lift it out, the very tip is soft, and the interior is still firm, and the contrast is exactly right. The almost dissolved outside, and the resistant crunch still left within. You eat it slowly. The wine is sweet, but not heavy, held in check by something mineral and long, by time itself essentially, and you sit with this for a moment. That a bottle tucked sideways in a wooden crate behind other wooden crates found its way to this exact evening, this exact table, this particular small glass. You are finishing the second cantuccino when you hear footsteps on the covered terrace outside. The easy, unhurried footsteps of someone who knows this stone well and is not bothered by the rain. A brief knock, more announcement than question, and then the terrace door opens, and the man who tends the vines is standing at the edge of the kitchen in a dark waterproof, still running with water, his cap in his hand, looking at you with the mild curiosity of someone who saw a light on and thought to check. Everything all right up here? You nod and hold up the Vin Santo bottle toward him. He looks at it, really looks at it, the label, the wax already cut, and something crosses his face that is not quite a smile, but is in the same neighborhood. He says nothing for a moment. Then, "Where did you find that?" You gesture toward the storeroom passage. He looks at the glass in your hand. "Good." You say yes, softly, into the warmth of the kitchen. He holds your gaze for just a moment, nods once as if something has been confirmed, and puts his cap back on. "Good, sleep well." The terrace door closes. His footsteps cross the stone outside and are swallowed by the rain. You sit with the last of the wine, and the last cantuccino and the bowl pushed to the side, and both palms on the old wood of the table. And the storm presses against all the windows of the house, and you are exactly at the center of it, held there by 60 centimeters of stone wall on every side, and the warmth of the stove still in the air, and the smell of garlic and olive oil, and something sweet still present in the kitchen. You finish the wine in one last small sip. You carry the bowl and the glass to the sink and run a little water over them and set them aside for morning. The pasta pot can wait. You turn off the range hood light, which leaves only the small lamp on the dresser burning, and the kitchen settles into its dark amber version of itself. The lemons still in the bowl, the garlic braid a little further depleted, the blue tin of cantuccini closed again on the larder shelf. You take the empty Vin Santo bottle and stand it on the window ledge, where it will catch the morning light when it comes. Someone should know it was found. Someone should know it was good. You turn off the last lamp. The kitchen goes dark, except for the faint gray movement of rain on every window, and the farmhouse holds you the way it has held everyone who has ever slept here. Without fuss, without asking anything, simply present around you like the walls it is made of. Cinematograph hold. The rain runs down the kitchen window in a line that has found its own channel in the glass. A slight imperfection in the surface, invisible in daylight, and it follows that channel every time, collecting into a droplet at the lower sill edge, rounding itself there, holding for a moment in the gray dark, then releasing and disappearing into the wood below. Then Another line of rain begins at the top of the same track, following the same path down, finding the same pause at the bottom before the sill takes it. The clock marks the hour. Outside, the vines stand in the dark and the rain and do not move. This house has been through 100 storms. It knows exactly what to do with this one. Cinematograph hold. The droplet forms at the sill edge and holds, trembling very slightly in a draft from somewhere. Then it releases and is gone, and above it, the glass is briefly clear, and then the next line of water begins its way down through the dark, finding the same groove, the same path, the same quiet disappearance at the bottom. The rain, the window, the dark, and you still inside all of it.